I'm Dean Deal.
And I'm Steve Hoskins.
And you're listening to This is the Good Life, a podcast devoted to deciphering what it means to live as a Christian in this day and age.
And not just a Christian, but as philosophers, theologians, and maybe even decent golfers.
And a marketing guy.
Yeah, used to be a marketing guy.
Yeah, so speak for yourself. As two longtime college professors, we share a common goal to bring virtue and character back into the conversation of what it means to be Christian.
We'll do this by unpacking the thoughts of both our current culture and prominent philosophers like Aristotle, Kant, Descartes, and a guy called Jesus Christ.
You'll find that some pretty old thinkers had some pretty good ideas.
So join us for a conversation worth having about a life worth living.
After all, this is the good life. Well, hey, Steve.
Hey, Dean.
We're going to talk about discipleship.
Well, good. We've reached a place in the way, in our whole approach to this. Sometimes I feel like we have done a whole lot for the trees and not a lot for the forest. I want people to see me as environmentally conscious. I mean, you're an outdoors person, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I try to keep the trees from being cut down.
Feed the bird.
Tuppence a bag. Tuppence a bag. But I mean, I really think that it's necessary in talking about the virtues to have discussions about the nature of the virtues or the nature of metaphysics. It's one of those things. I think people are pretty cool sometimes when we go, let's talk about the practice of prayer.
Right.
Or, there's a necessity to the practice of Bible reading. Right. Now, and those are quite often productive. They're also wonderful pathways to guilt, because we could all read the Bible more. I mean, have you read your Bible yet today? I got up this morning at 4 o'clock. Because I knew I was going to be with you. I spent a lot of time.
You want to be able to answer yes to that question?
And I want to be able to answer yes to that question and show off in front of you.
I did happen to read the Bible
because we are Nazarenes after all.
And we have created habits.
Yeah. And I, of course, was not a Bible quizzer. I don't know if you were or not.
I was a Bible quizzer until it became a matter of reflexes.
Oh, really? Yeah, and that's
as long
tough.
as you could take the little number thing and put out your number 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
I was good. But when you had to jump off of that little sensor on your chair,
so
I just didn't care enough to jump.
I'm a freshman at Trevecca. I'm 18 years old, and let's just say that the first month and a half, the freedom of the college life had not meant a lot for my church attendance record.
Right.
And so you
didn't have the long
I did not
string
have
of perfect
I was
attendance.
not the child that had the long string. And so I get the phone call. And it's like, how are things going? Fine. Yes, I need money. Where are you going to church? And so I thought, well, I'll go to church. And so College Hill, was right there on the campus, and I'd gone to College Hill as a little boy. So I wander down on Sunday night, back when we still had Sunday night church, and it's Bible quizzing night. And they have the Trevecca faculty versus the College Hill Bible quiz team. A bunch of 15, 16-year-old Bible nerds. And
were they doing the pop off?
Oh yeah. Well, this is the trick.
That's just not even fair.
This is the trick. It's Ray Dunning. It's Barbara McLean. It's Carol Ann Eby. And I'm thinking they're going to slaughter these kids. Oh, no. It wasn't about knowing the Bible.
No.
It was about reflexes.
It was about getting your butt off of that
That's
sensor.
right. And so they would jump up.
I had friends that could hold their weight on their legs so that they were barely, and they could just do this.
So it's 300 to nothing. The kids are just up off, and Dunning and them cannot get up off the chair to save their lives.
Right.
I mean, this is not.
It's like, let's be honest. I have a hard time getting out of a chair. Full stop.
Yeah, full stop right now. But there is that caveat, right? If a person on this side misses a question, then the person in their corresponding number.
Yeah.
All right, so it's 300 to nothing.
Yeah.
And the kid who is Dunning's number misses a question. It's a fill in the blank question. Finish this verse. And so they read the verse, and the kid jumps up and comes up, messes it up, and they look over, and there's Ray Dunning. Now they finally got it. It's 300 to nothing.
Yes.
Right. And Dunning stands up, and he comes over. He goes, "Would you read the question again?" And they read it. He goes, "Do you want it in the King James, the RSV, the NIV, or the original Greek?"
That's nice.
And then he proceeds to give them all 4. And I'm thinking, and he got 20 points. And I'm thinking he deserves 1,000. Right. And so at the end of the night, it's College Hill Bible quizzing nerd kids, 680. Trevecca faculty, 20. Yep. That was the only question because they couldn't get up out of the chair.
So, Steve, This episode's about discipleship.
Well,
I'm
and
just
so
kidding.
was that.
Exactly,
It'll
yeah.
make you think about it for a minute.
No, I'm with you. I was just playing around.
Because
as I want to
because
do.
I think that the nature of things, we value certain parts of practices, or we
Right.
value practices for certain ends, and we don't spend enough time talking about the nature of things.
Right.
And then we turn things into a competition. Did you read your Bible? I read my Bible this morning.
right.
How much, I'm going to read the Bible. How many times have you started that program where you read the Bible all the way through in a year? And you get somewhere in the bowels of Leviticus.
Wait.
You've done
Last
it?
year,
You did it?
I did the one that's in that Bible app because
It reads it to you.
you have to read it.
Okay.
But you have to understand how I'm wired. It's like I've done the New York Times crossword puzzle 4,000 times in a row because I don't want to lose my streak.
You're not competitive at all.
I'm just a tiny bit competitive, and I made it through it, and I swore I'd never do it again. I mean, I'm glad I did it. I've read through the Bible in a year.
Yeah.
Probably don't need to do it again now. I'm good.
Well, and see, without those discussions about the nature of
Just to
things.
clarify, I'm going to keep reading the Bible.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just not going to read
Yeah,
it cover to cover
just so
within
you
a
can
year.
say to people like me, I read my Bible today. Did you read your Bible? I mean, a little guilt goes along. We're Nazarenes. This is what this podcast is for.
We bring guilt. It's like I got it in a bag.
Yeah, we used to carry our holiness around with us, and now we just carry our guilt.
It's lighter.
It's much easier, and it's so much easier to throw it in the face of others.
That's right.
But when we talk about the nature of virtuous of the virtue of the life of virtues, of the good life, and we talk about the nature of practices and why. Discipleship is like when we talk about the virtues and we begin that, we list the virtues. There's fortitude, there's temperance, there's justice. But then it takes a Gregory the Great who, writes this 100,000 word commentary on the book of Job, 600, in the year 600. And he says—
How many words?
100,000 word commentary on the book of
so
Job.
for context,
The morals on Job.
The Lord of the Rings is
Right.
about 100.
Yeah, that's right, for context. And this is called The Morals of Job. And somewhere in the beginning, he
Read
says—
less often
Right.
than The Lord of the Rings.
a whole lot. In fact, the last time it was translated into English was
It's like
1899.
the most, exactly. The most read books in the history of books. This one's down the
I
list.
was assigned this one in PhD work, and I said, "Excuse me," and they said, "Yeah, there's if you can find it, there's a copy in English from 1899." So I chose the Latin, but there's this place where he says in the beginning, he says, in order to get Job, you have to understand the nature of morality,
Right.
and he says it is obedience that is the key to this book.
Yes.
And he says obedience is the key to this book and the key to understanding Job, because obedience is the virtue that holds all the other virtues together. Right. That's what discipleship is. Discipleship, we make plans. You can buy discipleship plans. Discipleship is a lifestyle. No. Discipleship is an actual practice,
Yes.
but it's the practice that holds all the other practices together.
And it's a practice of all the practices we discuss. Discipleship is one that happens in community.
Yeah.
Discipleship requires community. I can't disciple myself. That's not what discipleship
And
means.
it requires community with a history.
Yes.
Because we don't read the Bible. You and I have been talking lately, and I'm reading some. I'm getting older, and so
You may have mentioned it.
I may have mentioned that. I'll be 62. Are you 60 yet?
Give me a few weeks.
I can't wait. I just
By
can't
the time
wait.
this is
just can't
actually
wait.
out,
I'm going to
yes.
dress in black for the next podcast viewing, so that everybody will know that we're in mourning for
Let's
your
be
age.
honest. The rest of this podcast, this is what we're wearing.
This is all we're wearing.
We decided to go the Gilligan's Island
Yeah.
approach, where we're just in the same. We're in the same clothes always.
But I'm getting to that age, and I'm reading the books that I find out after I start down this pathway about a year and a half ago. It's called the regret literature,
Okay.
and it's Augustine had the good sense to call it the retractions.
Oh, nice.
Instead of regrets, he said, "Here's the things I take back."
Yeah.
And I was starting to think, What have I said? What have I written that and and in the regret literature, the people who introduced us to this way of looking at the Christian faith, William and Stanley Hauerwas wrote a book called Resident Aliens, and Williman writes a piece a few years ago on the regrets, because the book was very helpful. Started a generation. I picked it up right when I was in seminary. Yep. And he says, I regret that we turned practices, we threw out McIntyre's definition of practice as a socially situated way of living into the summum bonum, or the great good, that gives you a material way of bringing belief and salvation together. You're right, this beautiful stuff. But he says, unfortunately, we made practices sort of a generic way to be to have a less stressful life. Instead of the Sabbath being a way of worshiping the Creator, the Sabbath became a way of recalibrating the time of your life and making you a more moderate person. You weren't temperate, you were moderate. And you start talking to them, and you realize that there's that problem, because we leave God out of the equation. But then there's the problem of we just kind of become mediocre. Right. This is Christianity. This is real sacrifice. Discipleship is real discipline, and to do that, to reach that life where every day, 4,000 times in a row, the crossword, to be that kind of a Christian, you not only need to know what to do, pray, read your Bible. You not only need the kind of internal compass that realizes, hey, I need to do better.
Right.
Here's the pathway
Here's
the pathway is north, and that you need a goal, but you also need other people to do it with, right. And you need to know that in that group of people, that community, is history, is dead people. This is why I'm a historian. Right. And so that whenever I read the Bible,
you're a historian, so that the people that you talk about can't talk back.
That's true too. There is that. Somebody the other day said, "You should write a history of Trevecca." I said, "I just need 2 more people to die." Exactly. And that's a joke that hopefully won't reach Dan Boone's ears. But who will? If it happens, whatever. But Dan's not one of them. Let's just be clear.
Okay, good.
He's not at all. They're much older than Dan. But anyway, it is in that, right, sitting with those people, that discipleship becomes local.
Yes.
It becomes, okay,
That's
so
good.
when it says, so when the Bible instructs us, don't worry. Well, the first thing that happens is people start sharing what they're worried about. Yeah. And you begin to yes. realize how to suffer together, how to love each other, how to pray for each other. You become, my daughter needs a ride to violin camp. Well, I'm going to violin camp, and the next thing I know, I got your kid in the back of the car by my kid, and I'm out, in West Nashville while you're home having a good time, waiting in the hot sun for them to be. Not that I'm complaining. This didn't happen.
I did have a farm
25 years ago. Not that it happened yesterday, but you begin that process of being Christian together.
See, and this is where, when we try to scale discipleship up, I love what you said about discipleship being local. I worked in the Christian music industry. I've worked in Christian entertainment and in Christian bookstores, and the mass production of discipling materials. Whereas true discipleship has a place.
Yes,
it has a location. It has a specificity to a community of people that we're walking with. I love the concept and the idea of the Psalms of Ascent.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of we're on our journey to Jerusalem, and it's uphill.
Yeah,
and we're walking together, and we sing these songs together as we go up the hill, because no matter where you are in Israel, Jerusalem's up.
Yeah, it's always up. In the ancient world, every map that was drawn, the center of the universe, it's not the sun, it's not some vast galaxy, it's Jerusalem.
That's right.
It's the literal, it's the Mappus Mundi, the way we think about the world, and that's where we're all headed.
Yes.
And we're headed there together, and you can't get there unless you go through, and now we start naming the points on the journey. Suffering, the desert, joy,
yes,
conceit. I mean, I'm thinking of the Psalms of Ascent. But we go together,
Right.
And
we go singing.
and we go singing, and we get to sing the songs of Zion. And the great lesson you learn in discipleship, and this I think is really the whole thing about location, is if you cannot sing those songs where you are, you will never sing them where you are not. Discipleship is not a longing. It's not the great desire for something else. It's the desire to be good at this together in the moment, so that when someone's loved one dies, or when someone celebrates a milestone, they graduate, they get married, they have a baby, we walk that pathway and we sing the same songs of Zion together. And we're on that journey. I go to a church that sometimes I think needs to remember its history. I go to Campus Church. And for 10 years, when they started the church, they met either in the cafeteria, which apparently they burned to the ground at Trevecca at one point. Oops. And then they moved across the street to the McClurkin building.
Although I say oops, but I've been in a few cafeterias where it might have been, there might have been intent.
Might have been mercy.
There might have been.
Heartburn on a stick, boom, straight to the ground.
And I've almost burned a cafeteria.
But they decided to build a church on the salaries of college students and college professors. Now this is not.
You're not going to build a big church.
Yeah, it's not efficient, it's not productive. But it took 10 years, and they finally did. And so they built on the opposite corner. The church is still there. The building's still there on the right side of Jesus, which is where you always want to be. If you come to our campus, there's Jesus. You want to be on the right side of Jesus. And they walked from McClurkin.
That's not a political statement.
Yeah, no, it's not. They walked from McClurkin to that church with the Christian flag, waving it. Yeah. Carol Mahan is still alive. She was there that day. She's like 8, and she can still tell the story. And the sun is shining, and they're singing out loud together. We're walking to Zion. Beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're walking upward to Zion, the beautiful city of God. And if we could get people to see discipleship like that, then it becomes a whole lot more than the practice of prayer, the practice of Bible reading, the practice of.
It's back to the illustration that I've used probably way too many times, but in when you're learning an instrument or any discipline, you have to break that discipline down into. Let's use a golf swing. Yeah, there's a takeaway. There's a shift, there's a downswing, there's impact, there's follow through, there's posing for the picture. There's these steps.
There's the words that come out of your mouth when it doesn't go the way you want it to.
There's the club out soaring towards the pond. That's my follow through.
Yeah, that's mine too.
I've had sometimes where my grips were so old and it was raining where I've swung, and the follow through is you watch your club, and sadly enough, the club goes further than the ball did, and you go, "Can I play where the club lies?"
Yeah. I'll just play it from where the club.
I'm going to play it from where the club landed.
Can I get a 2-length from where the club lies?
Exactly right, and you just inch your way down, and you had a hole in one. Eventually, it's all about persuasion.
It is.
And I'm trying to remember what I was. When you take that swing, you break it down to pieces to understand it. But if you begin to think of the swing as now I'm taking it away, now I'm shifting, now I'm swinging down, now I'm making impact. You will never swing it until you see it as one movement, one fluid movement.
Right, and you've seen this, right? If you've played with if you are a bad golfer and you've played with, you see people who have the herky jerkies. Yeah, and they can't bring it through.
Too much.
And they get up there and they can't. And then when they do, it's a mess.
And then you watch somebody that swings a club and it's so fluid and so effortless, and it looks like they're not even trying, and the ball flies off because they have integrated those parts into a swing. And that's what you're saying is we do need to isolate prayer. We do need to isolate Bible study. We do need to isolate what does it mean to witness and to have mercy and these different practices that we're talking about. But all the practices form a practice, which is discipleship.
And it looks like a good human life.
That's right.
I mean, and so we need people for whom praying is breathing.
Yes.
For whom singing the songs. I go to a Sunday school class of old people. I was there yesterday. It's the happiest.
Hey, Steve.
I,
We are
no,
old-
no, no, no,
we
no, no,
are
no. I'm
old
going to make
people.
my point. I'm going to make my point. It's the happiest hour of my week because I'm the youngest person in the room.
There you go.
Okay, I am because my wife is there, and
Hey, all you have
I'm
to do,
even
if
younger
you're
than my
feeling
wife.
bad about yourself, all you have to do is look around and go stand next to people that got it worse
That's
than you.
right.
And
Yeah,
then,
who's got it worse
hey,
than
well,
you? You do.
I'm the youngest guy in the room.
And it's just great. It's great hour. But because I'm young, Ray Dunning is there. He's 98.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. And there is alive in the room the memory of people who are no longer with us. I mean, they call this class the agape class. I call it God's waiting room.
Yes.
Because as Moody Gunner said, the only way to get promoted out of this class is for the hearse to drive up out in front of the church.
The graduation ceremony looks very different.
Very different. He literally said that. But something started right before, maybe right as we came out of COVID. All of a sudden, people just wanted to sing.
They wanted to sing?
Sing. They weren't getting to sing. They didn't. I've never heard anybody in my Sunday school class complain about the music at church. I've never heard them get into the ugliness that you and I have lived with, in our adult lifetimes about church music. No. They just wanted to sing. They wanted, and they only know a very limited selection of songs. Mm-hmm. And so we brought hymnals in. We had to go find them. I mean, they were behind
in a box.
They were behind 12 years worth of history in a box somewhere.
They were underneath an amp, helping prop it up to the proper.
But there are some people you find who never open the hymnal. Yeah. There's this one little old lady. She lives in the towers. Whatever family she has is long gone. I don't know how. She seems to be a fine person. I don't know a whole lot about her social life, but I know this: she sings without thinking. It is for her just a natural expression of her love and faith in God. We need those people. And it seems to me that discipleship as a set of practices of the good life means then that we need not only those role models, but we need to think about discipleship in terms of apprenticeship. I was reading a book the other day. Lifelong. I was reading a book the other day by a pastor, Tex Sample, and he's funny. He's a pretty bright guy, and he said, we need to rethink the discipleship program at our church, like the Scouts merit badge system. And
would have worked good for me.
It would. Oh yeah.
Wait, I can earn a badge?
Yeah, I can earn a badge.
Can I get more badges than them?
Can I show them?
Can I have the most badges?
Yeah. Can I stand up on Sunday?
Yes.
And say I'm the king of all badges.
I have the badges.
I have the badges. But
Steve's over there. I don't need a badge.
I don't need no stinking badge. I can sing. Let's perform.
Yes.
It's just the way it is, right?
Okay.
But there is then that need though for some. If you're going to get a badge in basket weaving, you can't do it without a weaver.
Right.
I mean, and there are substitutes. I know, we live in a technologically driven world, but there's nothing like learning to make a basket, or my wife has done this, or a candle. This is what they taught us in VBS when we were little. Yeah. The person it's not an amateur, it's a master.
Yeah.
And they understand the patience. They understand, the history behind it. They've sat with other baskets.
Yes.
They know tricks. They know challenges. They know when they see a deviation in the materials that there are still ways to make this thing that is beautiful and useful and good. And so I think sometimes in the church we miss the opportunity, to literally create apprenticeships. And I think that's sort of like the genius of Wesley's revival is, everybody had to meet with 12 other Christians every week, and there was a person in the room, master, responsible. Yeah. Did you pray this week? Did you read the Bible this week?
It takes disciples to make disciples. Yeah. Yeah. See, we do harm to discipleship, first of all, when we try to scale it up.
Yep.
And take it out of the local context and say, oh, this will work at any time, in any place, and anywhere, and I'm going to be the person that mentors millions of people around the world. You can't do it.
No.
We do harm to discipleship when we understand it as head knowledge. Yes. I'm adding to my knowledge. It is an experience. The Greek versus the Hebrew teaching method. The Greek method, read about this and we'll talk about it.
Right.
The Hebrew method, let's get together in the thing and we'll do this together. Jesus walk with me, watch me. Now you guys go out and try it and come back and tell me how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, and there's this walking with Jesus together, the idea of pilgrimage, of journey. But we do so much harm when we make it discipleship. This is where we learn. Discipleship is Sunday school. This is where we go learn.
Yeah.
And there's
Programmatic.
no question that we need learning. Particularly, you and I were talking earlier about our theological tradition is at a great disadvantage because there's other theological traditions that for 100 years have published millions and millions of pages of
Recoverable
books.
documents on the internet.
Exactly. And that is what's shaping like how even like if you were to ask theological questions, the AI thing's going to go out there and it's going to grab the most common thoughts, and the most common thoughts are not coming from our tradition.
No.
And so as we drink from other wells, as our people are drinking from other wells, they're getting different flavors.
Yeah.
And so in the Wesleyan tradition, we need leaders, we need disciples who understand our tradition and that can disciple us in a particular type of a journey, a particular tradition with a history.
And are committed to this local place, this local church.
Exactly.
And if you can find that community and then look at it, over time, there are those who know how to pray. And so you say to the kids, we're going to talk about prayer for 10 weeks, or we're going to do a seminar on this. And then you just get them up and let them pray. And then we can talk about all the head knowledge we want, and we can talk about
That's right.
Jesus says this is how you pray. But the
Right.
real thing here is let's listen to her pray.
Yeah.
Let's listen. There was a woman who came to church in Kansas City who could just read the Bible.
You know what it makes me think of is the Fahrenheit 451, which is about the books.
Kurt Vonnegut?
No, that's not. That's
That's not him.
No.
Who is 451?
Oh, it's the one where they burn the books.
Yeah, I know. I know that. I just can't remember who wrote it.
I can't either.
Okay.
A couple of literature geniuses. All I was going to say is, they were memorizing the books because the books were being destroyed. And the guy goes to the thing to meet. He's in the underground, and he meets the guy, and he says, "Who are you? I'm the Gospel of Matthew."
Gosh.
Have you met John? This is the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
And his role was to preserve.
Right.
That my grandmother never wrote a book on prayer. She was
Yeah.
a book on prayer.
Yeah. 1911, the Church of the Nazarene comes to Nashville. And they're there because in Nashville to have the General Assembly, and they want to bring Trevecca in. Doesn't happen, long story. But they get 2 weeks of coverage in the Nashville Banner. Now, this is a big deal because this is a church with 10,000 people in it, and they write stories at night, put them on railroads, and by the morning coffee break, Boston, D.C., all the way to Seattle. Okay, this is Nashville is a central hub, and so of travel, and this is the way America is going, and so they get literally 2 weeks of front page cover. Nazarenes come out in favor of police. The Fraternal Order of Police are meeting in Nashville at the same time, and all the Nazarenes are union people. And the stuff that's going on in America between the police and the unions is the stuff of legend. It's violent, it's difficult, and the Nazarenes get all this press, but nobody reads the stuff. And if you go in to page 8, page 9, there's this picture of a little girl. She's 3. She's got on she has recited the entirety of the Gospel of Matthew. Yeah. She's recited on the stage of the Ryman Auditorium. And people sat there. And they were entranced by this practice of discipleship. Yeah. It was something that made them the people, that's something that we became. There's no great tradition there of Nazarene Bible quizzing. There's no great tradition there of Nazarenes writing these books full of answers to theological questions and doctrine, this, that, and the other. These were people hungry to listen, to sit together and listen to the goodness of God's Word. And the little girl stands up there and she looks out at them and she says, she doesn't say it, but she says it, while you're considering it, whether or not you're in favor of the police, consider the lilies of the field.
Yeah.
When you're trying to build big barns and you're trying to get, the denomination, you're going to be a worldwide denomination. Yeah. While you're doing this, show mercy. Yeah. There's Jesus saying these things. Jesus, just in the Sermon on the Mount alone, she says, stay married. Yeah. This is really interesting. Yeah. Jesus giving instructions. And here's this little girl just reading the Bible. That kind of discipleship can win the whole world to Christ.
I hope so.
Oh, I believe it. If I didn't. And that's the good life.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
This is The Good Life is produced by Nathaniel Jackson and is a ministry of Hermitage Church of the Nazarene. Visit hermitagechurch.org for more information about this podcast, as well as our other podcasts, all of which are a way that we're making Christ-like disciples in the nations. Thanks for joining us, and have a blessed day.